Recording.
Okay, so yesterday we finished to prove the McLean strictness theorem. We finished to prove McLean strictness theorem. So let's recall the statement. Any monoidal category is monoidally equivalent to a strict monoidal category. And let's recall that strict means that the associativity constraint and the unit constraint are trivial. Hein? Ça marche? Tu m'entends? Okay. So remark. Remark. Above theorem is not trivial in the following sense. So it's not trivial in the following sense. If C, so any monoidal category C is monoidally equivalent to a strict monoidal category C. Like that. If C is not strict, then it is so monoidally equivalent to C tilde. Okay, by the theorem, but not isomorphic to it. Not isomorphic to it. Exercise. Small exercise. So monoidally isomorphic. If C1 and C2 are monoidally isomorphic, C1 strict, if only if C2 strict. So the strictness is conserved by monoidal isomorphism. So that's why if C here is not strict, then by the theorem C tilde is strict. So C is not isomorphic to C tilde. not monoidally. Monoidally. Isomorphic. Okay. So now, let's see an example. Of C, which is not strict. So example, take C equal vec G omega with omega non-trivial. With the 3 cocycle, omega is non-trivial up to equivalence. Then C is not strict because omega in because such an omega encode non-trivial associativity constraint and is not iso to a strict one because omega is not equivalent to trivial. So I don't go into the details here, but if you take vec G omega, it's not strict because omega encodes a non-trivial associativity, but because it is also omega is non-trivial up to equivalence, so it cannot be isomorphic to a strict one. So I don't prove that in details. It's just some generic example. So wait. Wait. Anyway, it's not strict. Maybe there is a contradiction between this exercise and here. Anyway, I will have a look to that later. No, okay. Anyway, so I will put a question mark. Maybe question. I have a small doubt here and here. I should check that later. Anyway, so what about next? Okay. So next, there is a way we can make we can concretely a monoidal category C So by the construction in the McLean strictness theorem, you can make, in theoretically, some sense, a strict monoidal monoidal category, monoidal equivalent to C, in particular to this one. But there is a concrete way to get the strict, so not using the construction in the proof of the theorem, but in this case, using some group theory. Monoidal equivalence, a strict monoidal equivalence. We can make concretely a strict monoidal category, which is monoidally, let's call, monoidally equivalent to C. And so as follow, explicitly, maybe explicitly. So this is the construction, it's the following. So consider a surjective homomorphism F. So G is fixed here. You can assume G is a finite group. And you consider a surjective. So you are looking for another group G tilde, a surjective homomorphism F here, such that the 3 cocycle pullback F star omega. So this means you take the 3 cocycle omega, you take the homomorphism F, and you can make a 3 cocycle for G tilde. There is a natural way to do that, called the pullback. So you can make the 3 cocycle pullback of G tilde. Trivial, you can make it trivial. So you are looking for a group G tilde, a surjective homomorphism such that the pullback 3 cocycle is trivial. So how to do that? It's always possible with a free group because so you have G, so you can always find a free group G tilde with a surjective homomorphism into G, and the cohomology of a free group is always trivial. So the cohomology of degree greater than 1, because it's degree greater than 1 cohomology is trivial. So again, I don't go into the details, but there is a very easy way to do. So the cohomology is trivial, so the 3 cocycle must be trivial. And because the 3 cocycle encode the associativity constraint, here the associativity constraint become trivial. So we don't go into the details of this construction. Well, we don't go into the details. What is important to see is that you start from G, for example, finite, and you need to consider a free group G tilde with a surjective homomorphism. So G tilde is an infinite group. So there are much more elements inside. And you see, so what you should understand is that in this strictification process, well, you make a strict category, but you need to add a lot of objects. So I don't go into the details, but what is important? What is important to understand here is that such strictification process, such strictification adds object, add a lot, add object in each isomorphism class. Isomorphism class so here about the previous example. So here, if Fg equal Fh with G different from H, then, so F, the map, F is a homomorphism here. Then G tilde, so delta G is isomorphic to delta H in the strictification, but delta G different from delta H. Okay, so what's the point here? You start from G. You start from G, possibly finite, and the simple object of that is just delta G, just the element, in some sense, the element of the group. When you do the strictification, this strictification here using free group, the result, what you get is a strict category, but now when you go, so the simple objects are given by the element of the free group, and two objects are isomorphic if only if they map to the same element through this morphism. So there are lots. So this morphism is far from being injective. It's very, very non-injective. So in each isomorphism class, you have many more elements than initially for G. this trickification process add a lot of objects in each isomorphism class. So this is not a mathematical sentence, because what do you mean by add? This is not the same category. But okay. So I wanted to point out that because now we will discuss. Let's discuss the opposite, in some sense, the opposite process. Opposite again with it's not a mathematical, not mathematically, it's just intuitively opposite, called the skeleton. Skeleton. So we will explain what. So you have the strictification, and in opposite process, the skeleton. So what is a skeletal category? A category is skeletal if it has only one element in each isomorphism class. Whereas in the strictification, you add elements in the isomorphism class. So you see there is a tension between skeleton and strictification. You cannot be both strict and skeletal. You can be both strict and skeletal, but this is very rare in some sense. So I will explain. So this, what is a skeleton? So a skeletal category is what I wrote, only one element in each isomorphism class. Now, by the axiom of choice, again, we don't go into the details. Any category is equivalent to a skeletal category. Let us call it its skeleton. So we don't go into the details, but you see, intuitively, you just pick one element in each isomorphism class, and you make everything work well, and then you get a category which is skeletal. Okay. So this is at the level of category, but you can this work also for monoidal category. So any monoidal category, so you can prove that as an exercise, is monoidally equivalent to a skeletal monoidal category. So obviously in the previous, what I wrote, the previous sentence, it's just equivalent. Here for monoidal category, as an exercise, you can show that you can also have monoidal equivalence. So the previous example with vec g omega show intuitively that a monoidal category may not be monoidally equivalent to a strict and skeletal monoidal category. So in general, of course, you can find some counterexample, but in general, it's not possible. Exercise. Vec G omega as a strict skeleton, if and only if omega is trivial. So if omega is trivial, the skeleton of that is also strict. This is, if omega is trivial, this is strict. This is already strict, but its skeleton is also strict. And this is more or less the only example we know of strict and skeletal category. So remark, we know very few example of strict plus skeletal monoidal category. So the skeleton of this, the skeleton of that with omega trivial is an example, but we don't know much more example than only this one. So I want to mention so it's a very interesting property. In fact, if we can find categories which are both strict and skeletal, other than such example, this will be very interesting for the categorification problem, because we could try to consider fusion ring, and we can look for categories which are strict and skeletal, such that, and then it will be very easy to categorize a fusion ring. If there exists such category, you can look for fusion, their Grothendieck ring, and their categorification will be trivial because the strictness implies the associativity constraint is trivial. So the pentagon equation would be also trivial. So it could be very interesting about the categorification problem to find such category. And you can prove some restriction. So maybe what I will write now is kind of overview. Overview of some future course. So I will mention some notion here which I did not define before, but this is very relevant for about strict skeletal category. So we can show we can show that a strict skeletal fusion category. So I did not define that, but the fusion category is a specific notion of monoidal category. It contains every representation category of finite group. And it contains also this example. So we can show that a strict skeletal fusion category must be of multiplicity 1. So I did not define multiplicity, but multiplicity is the maximum of the fusion coefficient. And the proof of that involves the Kronecker product. The Kronecker product we defined in some previous class, and you can see the remark 4.10.8 in the book. In the book we are following, there is a remark in the book, and you should go to the following link. So it's a kind of so this course is a basic course, but it's interesting to mention some open problem. If you meet some notion where there exists some open problem, I guess it's interesting to mention that, because all these notions are not dead notion. This is very alive. There are many research to do, and the research is very close to the research level is very close to what we are saying in this course. So you can very quickly go to some open problem. So the open problem here is to find a strict skeletal fusion category which is not of this form. And within Kronecker product, we can prove that such fusion category must be a multiplicity 1. And you should see, so you should go to this web page, HTTPS math overflow, .NET Q. Tac. Yeah. So you can go to this web page. It's a math overflow question I asked myself, asking about strict skeletal fusion category. Anyway. Okay, so let's continue the course. So now we will prove the main conjecture, the main corollary of MacLane strictness theorem, called the coherence theorem. So the coherence theorem. So the main consequence of MacLane strictness theorem is the coherence theorem. So we will explain. What time is It remains 10 minutes before the pause. Okay, so we have a bit time. So what is the point of this coherence theorem? So let's introduce so let us introduce this theorem. Note that there are several ways to parenthesize the tensor product of several objects. So there are several ways to parenthesize an object like that. So you this object, this does not make sense without parentheses. So you need to choose one bracketing, one parenthesis to make this make sense. But there are several ways to do that. So exercise. Exactly. So the number of ways is exactly 1 over n plus 1, 2n n. So you put n plus 1 way. And this number is called the Catalan number. So the Catalan number. Catalan number, and this is a very famous number, series of number, very famous in combinatorics. So you take if n plus 1 equals 3. So you have the Catalan number, so 1 over 3. The binomial 3, 2. This is 6 over 3, this is 2. So this is okay. In fact, n plus 1 equals 3. So you have the way 1, 3. This is a. So there are 2 ways to parenthesize that. You can do that or like that. So there are 2. 2 is okay. So 2 okay. 2 okay. See if n plus 1 equals 4. So you get 1 over 4, 6, 3 is equal to 20 over 4, which is equal to 5. 5. So wait. So before talking about the next step, I need to say something here. I need to say something about the case 3, when you have 3 objects. So these two objects are different in general, but isomorphic using the associativity constraint. So they are isomorphic by associativity constraint A x1, x2, x3. So to be correct, you should put parentheses like that. So the A, x1, x2, x3 go from that to that. Otherwise, you need to take the inverse. But they are not equal in general. So this is, in general, they are different, but isomorphic. Now, what about n equal 4? So n equal 4, you have 5 ways to make parentheses, to put parentheses. So and 5 way, 5. So n equal 4. There are 5 ways. So you start from x1, x1, x2, x3, x4. So you can parentheses like that, or x1, x2, x3. So you can do like that, or you can do like that. Four. Like that. Okay, so terminal. Then you can do like that. X1, x2, x3, x4, and finally. So here, okay. 3, so 5 is okay also. 5, okay. So we should make the pause now. So I will say something about this. N plus 1 equal 4 case, and then we can, when we will state and prove the coherence theorem. So now the pause. Okay. So let's restart. So if we have 4 components in this tensor product, there are 5 ways to make parentheses. And so they are all isomorphic. They are all isomorphic by applying several times the associativity constraint, by applying several times the associativity isomorphism. But so they are all isomorphic, so you can pick two. You pick two, for example, this one and this one, and you can make an isomorphism between the two by making some associativity isomorphism like that, by composing associativity isomorphism. For example, so they are all isomorphic, but this is the main point. There are several ways to make this the isomorphism. For example, there are several ways. For example, for going from x1 tensor x2, x3 tensor x4, from there to this one, x2, x3, x4. So you have two ways. So you have a way another way. So the pentagon, two ways as in the pentagon, but there are two ways. So but the composition of the isomorphism in these two ways are equal by it's exactly the pentagon axiom. So in this case, you have 4 components in the tensor product. You have 5 ways to make parentheses. Each one, they are all isomorphic to each other. The point is that you can make isomorphism, but there are several ways to make isomorphism. In this case, you have 2 ways, here or here. But the pentagon axiom says that the composition of the isomorphism, this one and this one, they are equal. The diagram commute. This is the main point. They are the same. The question is it true if you have 5 components, 6 components, 7 components in the tensor product? So this is the point of MacLane coherence theorem. So McLean coherence theorem say that this property extend to n plus 1 greater than 4. So if you have more than 4 components, and by property, I mean this equality. I mean that the property equal. So the theorem state as follows. So now this is the end of the introduction to this theorem. Now we can state it precisely. And then we can, I guess we will have time to prove it today. Okay, so coherence theorem. Coherence theorem. So yeah. So this coherence theorem, you should qualify it. So it's the first important result in monoidal category theory. The first important result in this course. Okay. So let C be a monoidal category and let x1 up to xn be in a object of C. Let P1, P2 be two parenthesized product x1 tensor up to xn in this order. Let Fg from P1 to P2 be two isomorphism obtained by composing associativity isomorphisms or inverse and identity morphism. So in the book, they also add what is it? Unit isomorphism. But to simplify, we just ignore the unit isomorphism. It's always the same convention. Anyway, in the book it is stated using so you can also compose with unit isomorphism. So we ignore that for simplification. So you have a modal category. You have n objects. You make a tensor product of this n object in the right order, x1 to xn, with two different parentheses, two different bracketing. You call it P1 and P2. And you consider two isomorphisms between P1 and P2 obtained by composing associativity isomorphism or inverse or identity isomorphism. We know that these two are always isomorphic by such composition, but we know also that they can have several ways to make such isomorphism, as we see before. So we pick two. The results say that these two ways, the composition of the isomorphism in these two ways are the same. In other words, F equals G. Okay. So as I said before, it's a consequence of MacLane strictness theorem. So proof, let L from C to C prime be a monoidal equivalence. Monoidal equivalence. Equivalence between C and C tilde strict. C tilde, C prime, here is strict. Okay, and now consider F and G. So you have F and G, so you start from P1, you go to P2, and you have F and G. So F and G are two ways to go from P1 to P2. So here, each star here is an associativity isomorphism or identity. So we don't like that. So this is F. And there can exist another way. So another way, again, we put star for the associativity isomorphism we choose. And the composition of everything here is G. Now you apply the monoidal equivalence L. And what you get, you have L of P1, L of P2. The same way. So so you can write L star, etc. L star. So you replace every star by L star, and each star is some isomorphism and associativity isomorphism. So what you get here, L of F, and here L of G. Okay. So now the key the key of the proof is to attach. So you attach the monoidal structure axiom in each intermediate step. So the monoidal structure axiom is it's a commuting rectangle. So for each key of the proof, attach the monoidal structure axiom. So it's a diagram on each intermediate step. So one intermediate step, it's like that, L star, and you attach the so you put star, for example, here star is some isomorphism, associativity isomorphism, A, X, Y, Z. And so you attach, so L of A, X, Y, Z, and you have the commuting rectangle coming from the monoidal structure axiom. So you have something A, and here it's A, right here. A prime Lx Ly Lz. And A prime is the associativity constraint for the strict category C prime. No, it's not okay like that. I want to draw it like that. A prime Lx Ly Lz. Okay, so you do that. So you attach this triangle at every step here and also in the other side. Okay. So the main point is that A prime Lx Ly Lz is equal to the identity because C tilde is strict. This is associativity isomorphic in C tilde like that. But it's strict, so it's identity by definition of strictness. And the composition of identities is identity. So two ways. If you add this rectangle here, and then you compose on the border, you will have identity and identity. So the composition of identities is identity, and identity is unique. unique. But there is a unique identity. Identity between LP1 and LP2. Yeah, in fact, by strictness, we also have LP1 equal LP2. And LP1, this is also called LP2 by strictness also. Okay. So unique. So now, what is the point? How to come back to? So so you start. So the key picture is the following. Like that. So you have, so this way, so you have L of F here, L of F, L of G. So maybe I should draw like that. You have L of F and L of G. LF, LG. So this LF and this LG here. And here you have this point is LP1, this point is LP2. So this is the first way. You have the first way on the left, the right way on the right in red. And you glue, as I said, you attach the commuting rectangle. So you attach commuting rectangle. So commuting rectangle, so you have something like that, blah, 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 etc. etc. What we know is on the border of this picture, you have identity everywhere. Identity, 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 identity of something. Identity, identity, etc. Identity, identity, tac, identity, identity. Okay. So, but identity equal identity. So identity from the left here, if you want. Here, identity. Here, it's identity, but the same. this identity of LP1 of yeah, the same identity. Now we want to make what we want to make this. We want to make this equal this. But this is immediate because everything commute and everything is isomorphism. Because everything commute. Everything commute locally. Locally, I mean every small rectangle commute locally. And there are isomorphism everywhere. And this implies that F equals G because L is equivalent, so is faithful. Okay, so if you want to see, if you don't understand why we can go from there to there, let's call it like that. So what about some details if you need details about that, about this one. So if you call this map gamma, gamma prime, and here you call alpha 1, alpha 2, etc. And here you call this beta 1, beta 2, etc. What you get is, and here you call the associativity isomorphism here, you call it A1, A2, etc. And here B1, B1 here, B2, etc. B2. So you have going from there, so from there to, so we are interested in this way and this way. Going from there to there, because the diagram commute, this is the same thing as going there, 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 etc., etc. So and going from there to there, This is the same thing as going from there, there, and there. And there, then again, there, and there. There, no, etc. But we know this is identity, 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 equal to the composition on the right. So we have the equality gamma A1 alpha 1 inverse alpha 1 A2 alpha 2 inverse alpha 2 A3 alpha 4 alpha 3 inverse alpha 3 inverse, etc. to gamma prime is equal to identity, and it's equal to gamma beta 1 B1 beta 1 inverse beta 1 B2 beta 2 inverse beta 2 B3 beta 3 inverse, etc. up to gamma prime. But if you change the parenthesis, so you change the parenthesis, what time is it? So this is equivalent to here that simplify alpha inverse alpha simplify alpha 2 inverse alpha 2 simplify you can simplify etc. So I will draw like that. Simplification alpha 1 change parenthesis simplification, so you get gamma A1 A2 up to gamma prime equal gamma B1 B2 to gamma prime equivalent to gamma L of F gamma prime equal gamma L of G gamma prime. And you can simplify by gamma because gamma is isomorphism. Okay. And you can simplify. Tac. So you get all the details for this from the, yeah, so it's okay. So this is the proof. This is the end of the proof of MacLane's coherence theorem. End of the proof. So it remains 9 minutes. So okay. Remark. So the proof. Yeah, the proof is So the consequence of Maclaurin strictness theorem. So I should mention Maclaurin strictness theorem somewhere. Such L exists by Maclaurin strictness theorem. Okay. So remark. So unless confusion is possible, so unless some confusion, according to the previous theorem, we can safely ignore the parenthesis when you compute on the monoidal category. You can safely ignore the parenthesis in computation for computation in monoidal category. In monoidal category. As any two ways to identify two bracketing two parentheses are always the same. And remark, this look like to for people who know that, Church-Rosser confluence theorem. Confluence theorem in lambda calculus. Lambda calculus. So lambda calculus is an area of computer science, theoretical computer science. Theoretical computer science. Result. So it's almost the same thing. You have two ways to do the same thing and they are equal. This is such phenomenon is called confluence. And in fact, both Maclaurin coherence theorem and Church-Rosser and lambda calculus can be understood in terms of confluent category. This is the notion of confluent category. Okay. So it's almost done for today. So next week, we will introduce the notion of left, respectively right, dual object Corresponding to left, respectively right, adjoint of a functor. So next week I will define what is a left and right dual object in a monoidal category in the monoidal category, the endofunctor of C. Next week we will introduce notion of left and right dual object in a monoidal category. And if you are in the specific monoidal category of endofunctor of C, of some category, then the notion of left-right dual object corresponds to the notion of is exactly the left and right adjoint of a functor in this category. So it's in some sense, so it's a generalization of left and right, generalizing the left respective right adjoint functor in the monoidal category of endofunctor. So you have this notion of left and right adjoint or dual in general, more general, exists for any monoidal categories. You don't need to be a category of functor. And a rigid, and we will also introduce. We will also introduce the notion of rigid monoidal category dual. And this means every object has a left and right dual. The left dual and the right dual have left and right dual. Not necessarily the same. Dual object. Dual object. Okay, so we are done for today. See you next week. C'est bon, tu peux.